So today we are having a little chat with Ashley Agbasoga. Yes, class of 2015 at Brooklyn. And I'm going to start by just asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with Anthro and with Brooklyn College.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, thank you, Marlena. It's an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today. I take mentorship very seriously, and so being able to talk to folks who are at DC Anthro now, I was excelled through by other mentors, so it's an honor to continue that ladder. Okay, so I graduated in 2015 technically, although I presented my senior thesis on health in Bushwick, Brooklyn in 2014. I entered Brooklyn College. I was a transfer student in 2011, I believe fall 2011. And I came in a pre-med student, but I had always, at least since the seventh grade, wanted to do anthropology. I have a funny story about that actually, because when I was in seventh grade, an anthropologist came to speak for a career day. The mom of, how would you say, classmate of mine. And it sounded fascinating. I was like, wow, I get to talk to people all day and learn why they do what they do. Great. So I went home that day, and told my dad in the car on the car ride home. I was like, yeah, Dad, I figured out exactly what I want to do with my life. And he said, oh, yeah, like doctor, lawyer, engineer. And I said, no, I want to be an anthropologist. And he took his eyes off of the road and he was like, do you want to starve? And I was like, oh, okay. And I never returned back to anthropology until I got to Brooklyn College. And I remember that moment and how I felt when this anthropologist came to speak. And so I was like, you know what? Like, let me just try a class or two I'm going to school on my own terms. And I've been in it since. So yeah, Brooklyn College Anthro, honestly, I think, in my humble opinion, one of the greatest departments, period. They have such caring and dedicated faculty, and the students are just as much, if not more. And so some of my best friends from undergrad that I'm still in contact with today, I met in anthropology. And yeah, I wouldn't have had it any other way.
I love that. That's such a cute story. It's like, it's interesting how certain things just kind of stick with you throughout your life. And I guess you kind of mentioned like what attracted you about when the speaker came to your class when you were younger. It's like you get to be with people and talk to people and get to know people. Do you feel like that kind of way of thinking about anthropology carried through in your undergrad, and then like what changed about your understanding of anthropology and what it is that you did?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think at the helm of anthro, or the way that a lot of us practice it today, particularly through the method of ethnography, right, is trying to figure out why people do things, right? Or why things are the way they are in the first place. And how do we as people navigate the world, right? How do we make it better? How do we make it worse? How do we kind of deal with the complexities of everyday life? And I was also very nosy as a kid, so I think it's helped quite a bit to be nosy a little bit. Although I know now, after I did grad school, there are limits to being nosy. But I think when I got to Brooklyn College, the professors there were able to give so much nuance to everyday life that I had seen, but I didn't necessarily know how to articulate, and that there were like methods for this and whatnot. I also learned that there were 4 different subfields in anthropology when I got to Brooklyn College. I know that a lot of people still think that anthropology, like, we're Indiana Jones and we're like, we have the hat and, we're battling snakes and digging up dead people. No, I don't do that at all. I would not like to do that. And so when I tell them, like, yeah, it depends on, what subfield you are. And sometimes people combine the subfields. And even like medical anthro, I think, is our 5th subfield, in a way. I think that that allows us to get at issues coming from in grad school. I'm in a four field department at Northwestern University. And what I've appreciated about thinking and like being not forced, but encouraged to take the different subfields, both at Brooklyn College and at Northwestern, it allows me to think about a certain problem from different vantage points. Like I initially remember thinking, oh, there's no use for Archie for my project. Oh no, that's completely wrong, right? My whole project is now thinks about mapping and like the concept of a palimpsest, which I learned in an archaeological course. Right? So despite my work being more political anthropology. So yeah, I think Brooklyn College definitely set the foundations for that. I was doing medical and like a little bit of linguistic here and there, while I was at BC, and now I'm more in the cultural realm at Northwestern. But yeah, all 4 fields. I would be lying if I said Dr. Chester's class didn't, inform my thinking. He's still at Brooklyn College, right? Yeah, I should write to him. But
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Dr. Kavanaugh, amazing.
Right.
On the linguistic side, and Dr. Antoniello on the medical side. So yeah.
So tell me a little, because like you said, it's so vast. So anthropology, there's so many different routes that you could take. So when you were kind of deciding, you said you kind of went into more political, the political side of anthropology, some medical anthropology. What kind of helped you narrow it down? Or is that something that you kind of always knew you wanted to go in?
Ooh, good question. I feel like I'm still wavering as I complete the last draft of my dissertation today. Let's see. So when I was at Brooklyn College, I was more medical anthro, although that didn't limit my scope of interest in other ways to do anthro. Right. I think looking back 7 years later, I wanted, there was still a dream to do the med school thing until it wasn't, and I was like, okay, I can balance this out with medical anthropology. And I actually got into grad school to do a medical anthro, a medical and linguistic anthro project, thinking about the ways that people articulate their health, particularly Black communities in Mexico. And then after 2 summers, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this project anymore. I kind of want to shift over. But it wasn't because I lost interest in medical anthropology at all. It was kind of what the cards I was dealt for the area I wanted to work in at the time. But even as a student at Brooklyn College, I think my favorite course was Dr. Kavanaugh's Anthropology of Food course. I loved that course. I think apart from that, Dr. Kavanaugh is amazing. It's that also I love food, right? Who doesn't? And so I think that has influenced my work greatly because now that in the fall, so I'll be moving back to New York in the fall to become an assistant professor at NYU, particularly at Gallatin. And my second book project will be thinking about foodways, right? So I don't know, like, yeah, anthropology allowed me to do all of these different like realms of thinking, right? From like medical anth, which I still enjoy reading, very much. My advisor at Northwestern is a medical anthropologist, Dr. Adia Benton. But then also being able to do more like political anthropology, thinking about nation state formation and settler colonialism. And who knows, maybe I'll also become an anthropologist of food, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And congrats on NYU. I actually did know that, but just hearing you say it now, that's an amazing accomplishment. So
Thank you.
excited
Thank
to
you.
come
It's wild. I'm still, I signed this month, so it's still like fresh and new. Yeah, wild. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's amazing. Are you excited to come back to New York?
I am. I'm not excited about the prices. The cost of living. I've been shopping for apartments and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like luckily NYU offers subsidized faculty housing. But what I get in Chicago, is in for the price next to Lake Michigan is, it's incomparable. But then people would say that Chicago is not comparable to New York. So who knows? But excited to be back in a place I consider home. I wasn't born and raised in New York, but it became home for a variety of reasons. And I almost did not leave. I almost stayed to go to grad school in New York. But yeah, excited to return, excited to be closer to CUNY. I feel like CUNY is the only institution that I have any allegiance towards. Because it's so cool, because the people there are so rad and they're the smartest people I have ever had the honor to encounter, in a college setting. So yeah, I'll try to make a bunch of like NYU CUNY connections.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about, you said that originally you were planning on maybe staying in New York for your graduate, and then you decided on Northwestern. What kind of influenced that decision?
Wow. Well, Dr. Kavanaugh it was, like, you should go to Chicago, or go to Northwestern, which is right outside of Chicago. And another mentor of mine, Dr. Herman Bennett at the CUNY Grad Center, I met him through the CUNY Pipeline program, which I did. The CUNY Pipeline program basically takes those who, are working class or of color, those that are underserved in the academy, and helps prep them for not only like the grad school admission process, but also like our first year, like kind of what classes would be like and such, which was a total blessing for me because I don't think I would have found the resources to go to grad school. So shout out to the CUNY Pipeline program. But Herman Bennett was the director at the time. And he also encouraged me to kind of spread my wings a bit and go to Northwestern. I wanted to stay in New York for several reasons as well. I was like, okay, this is comfortable. This is what I know. It would have been at the CUNY Grad Center. So I was like, okay, cool. A lot of the people I'm already in contact with in the scholarly world are at the CUNY Grad Center. So this will be an easy transition. And I had a $600 studio, like a block from Prospect Park. So I was like, I have this apartment and like community. What more could I need? But a few people, including my friend, which I'll show in a moment, we're like, maybe it's time to fly and to, explore your interests elsewhere for now. New York will always be there. And so I did. And I think that was one of the best decisions that I've made in my life. Yeah. I ended up, honestly, how would I say, there's a deep disparity with universities throughout the country, particularly or especially private versus public. And after transferring from a very prestigious but terrible private school in New York City, that was not NYU, and when I transferred to Brooklyn College, I had sworn that I would never attend a public school, a private school again, that I would never give them an ounce of my time, that I didn't care about prestige. I was like, blah, 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 expletive. Right? But, F bombs. But when I got time to decide between the CUNY Grad Center and Northwestern, I remember mentors saying Northwestern has resources, more resources than CUNY, and that you will not have to work as many jobs as like I did when I was an undergrad. There were times where I was working like 3 jobs to like stay afloat. They're like, you could just focus on your studies. And that's true at Northwestern for someone who is single. Although yes, grad stipend should be much higher. I'll plug that in also. But it is definitely a livable stipend for a single person like me. And so, and they were right. So it like still continues to anger me deeply that I had to make that decision based on like resources and like also, to get out of my comfort zone. And that same kind of came up again when I was on the job market, and I got 2 offers, one from a public school and one from a private school. And the resources that were able to be offered were unparalleled. And it makes me, it's frustrating. And I'm like, but these places are where like some of the smartest minds are, but they don't have access to things that like many students at private schools do. And the friend I mentioned, is it okay if I talk about Oscar now?
Of course, let's talk about Oscar.
It's always a good time to talk about Oscar Limuz. So this is my comrade and dear friend, Oscar Lim. Oh, you can't see him. Oscar Limuz. He was Brooklyn College class of 2016, I believe. He was in anthropology, and his advisor was Katie Hitmanik, or Dr. Hitmanik, excuse me.
My advisor.
Oh yeah. And she was amazing. He loved Katie, and like would always talk about how much she influenced him, as well as Dr. Antoniello. And we took classes together, and he was one of the main people who encouraged me actually to go to Northwestern. And I was super scared because I was like, Oscar, I don't want to leave my friends like you, and And he was like, look, like, go do your thing. We'll always be here. And in a way, I'm sorry. In a way, Oscar, Oscar ended up going to Indiana for grad school, IU in Bloomington. And I think his department was informatics, but anthropology centered everything that he did in his project. He would do work with women street vendors in his native Guatemala, in Chopan. And he had many accolades, including a Microsoft grant, and he was getting ready to go do field work and to finish on up. And unfortunately, he passed in a car accident after vacationing with his mom in early September. But his words where he was like, we'll always be here, continues to stick with me. I'm sorry. Oh no, I'm crying. Whatever, crying is good.
I'm crying.
His words continue to stick with me, in that, like, he will always be here. And since his passing, although it's been really difficult because he was also my writing partner, um, over the years in grad school or when we were in the field together. Um, his presence continues to be with me. In my dissertation is dedicated to him.
Oh, wow.
And without being at Brooklyn College anthropology, we wouldn't have met, right? We nerded out about anthropology all the time. We refounded the Brooklyn College Anthropology Club after it had been defunct for decades. It seemed probably before I was born. And me, him, and like a few others like Defkey and Geraldine, we brought it back up and and I hear it's going strong today, which is really cool. But yeah, just I guess all of that is to say not only to remember Oscar, but to also remember the impact that Anthro at BC had on my life. I'm still in contact with many of the folks I met, both professors and friends. And yeah, in a way, it sounds really corny, but it always has like a special place in my heart. And like Brooklyn College in general. I'm finishing up at Northwestern, and there are several colleagues that like went to CUNY also, and so we would like band together and be like CUNY, and we'd argue which one was the best. And I'm like, no, it's not only is it Brooklyn College, but Brooklyn Anthro. Yeah. And I don't cape for anthropology departments like that at all. So as someone who's sort of leaving the discipline in a way, but keeping some of its methods. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's like a in memoriam, and that, yeah, in a way that those experiences that I had at Brooklyn College Anthro continue with me for the better.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing and for sharing Oscar with us. Thank you both for being here. I didn't know that you guys kind of, brought the Anthro Club back to life, which is amazing because, like you said, this still going strong. We have, our little events, and it's been tough with the pandemic and everything, but we're getting back to it and, still going strong. So you guys, you left your footprint.
Yeah, that's so good to hear that it's like it's still on. It's I'm gonna give all the credit to Oscar. He really pushed through, and like his mom ended up going back to school and like doing anthropology stuff in Queens, and yeah, so it's all Oscar.
Thank you, Ashley and Oscar, for being here with us today. It really was an honor being here with you and having this conversation. And before we go, I mean, I feel like that was kind of a perfect note to end on, but is there any like message or quote or anything like that that you would give to our current Anthro students?
Ooh, oh my gosh. I don't have one right now. I'm not too sharp on my feet sometimes. Okay. I'll think about it and then I'll send it over.
I'll put it in text at the end.
Yeah, just like keep going. It sounds really corny again, but like do what you love. Do what you love. I think my dad has apologized since. This is not a rag on my dad, but if I would have kept that like, you're gonna starve thing, who knows, maybe I'd be a physician and very unhappy. I hated the idea of becoming a doctor, but I decided for a while that that's what I needed to do. And then I was like, no, I actually love doing XYZ, that I could do in anthropology. And, now I'm on my way, transitioning out of grad school and doing it for a living at NYU and getting paid to do it, paid well. So I'm not starving. So that is to say, do what you love.
I love that.
And do it from the heart.
Oh, yeah. I needed to hear that. Thank you.
Of course. Oh, well, thank you so much for cutting a slice out of your day and
Yeah, thank you as well for taking the time for being here. Um, Ashley Agbasoga, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Merlina. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. I
All
hope
right.
to be in touch.
Thank you. Sounds good.